They're making some pretty bold predictions about how things would turn out.
But if Biden wins, your borders are gone, the middle class is gone, your safety is gone, gas prices going $5, $6, $7 for a gallon. Flood your communities with criminal aliens, drugs, and crime. You spend trillions of dollars rebuilding foreign nations, fighting foreign wars, and defending foreign borders.
So for all those predictions of doom and gloom, here's where we stand.
Do you want to use the word recession or depression?
And you know Biden, he can't stand up to the lunatics running his party. He can't even find his way off the stage without him.
Look, the bottom line is this.
I say you're not doing a very good job.
It seems like Trump's prediction about Biden during the 2020 election it's all coming true, isn't it? And the worst thing you can do as an opposing political, politician, is to prove and vindicate everything that your opponent had predicted about you during a re-election bid. Now, I think this should be the easiest election for many people, but I understand that as much as we humans like to think we're very rational, we're also very emotional. That's the reality. We're a thinking and feeling creature. And many people feel like Trump is not the answer. But if you're looking at this from a rational point of view where Trump was able to see all this coming under a Biden administration, and if you're still not convinced, well, I got some bad news to really tell you guys, because I think this is something that needs to be reported. I'm pretty sure today many people are going to start reporting on this, but I kind of want to be early on this. The petrodollar. We have lost our petrodollar status as of June 9th, 2024. Now, what is the petrodollar? Essentially, when we got off the gold standards, thank you very much, Richard Nixon. I think that was Richard Nixon who did that, Republican president. One of the many policy mistakes, right? I call out both sides. When I don't agree with something, I call it out. That's what you're gonna get in this channel, a very fair, honest take on things. When we moved away from the gold standard, we had to base our dollar on something else that gives it a perceived value. And Nixon was smart, right? We had the oil standard. This is how I call it. That's what I call it, the oil standard. Because essentially what the petrodollar was is that Saudi Arabia, as an agreement of protection from the U.S., the U.S. agreed to protect Saudi Arabia. For 50 years, Saudi Arabia will exclusively only trade their oils with U.S. dollars. So that means if you wanted a U.S. dollar, if you're Russia, China, you had to go get U.S. dollars to do it. And that gave us the strength we needed to maintain our inflationary rate, so we don't go into hyperinflation when our government's here printing all this money. Now, Democrats typically, to me, they don't know how to do they're not very strategic with their policies for most part, because they want to spend all this money. And the consequences of free government stuff, and this is something that Thomas Sowell has pointed out many times in his books, is inflation. Now, you already complained about inflation now. We just lost this. And the worst thing too, Saudi Arabia also joined the BRICS movement, which is an alternative to what the U.S. government has been using with its fickle foreign policy. Why do you call it fickle, Kenny? Well, I can give an example with Kamala Harris going to one of these African countries. Sorry if I don't remember which country it was. And she was saying that she would withhold foreign aid from this African country if it didn't, because it doesn't have adequate support of LGBTQ rights. That's the kind of ideological games that the Democrat plays with foreign policy. The same way that Joe Biden says you're not going to get the $1 billion until the prosecutor gets fired. This is how our government decides to leverage our standing and our position that our ancestors long ago has strategically placed us to empower and give us one of the highest standards of living in the world. With the loss of the petrodollar, we may not feel it immediately, but eventually we're going to get hit with the effects of de-dollarization. And I think this is something that a lot of Americans need to be aware of. And I want you guys to watch this clip to get a full understanding of how some people are feeling and understanding the impact that this event has, that it seems like no one in the mainstream media is covering it. I've only been able to find this information online. Let's take a look.
Now, I haven't talked about this in a little while, but you guys remember the BRICS nations, the original group of people that were trying to figure a way to decouple the U.S. dollar from like all international trade? See, the U.S. dollar, part of the reason it holds its value is because it's sort of the uniform currency for international trade. Then you have groups or countries like Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, BRICS, the BRICS nations. They've been trying to figure a way to decouple from the US dollar, to weaken the dollar, basically flood the market with so much US dollar that no one wants that it becomes useless. Now, we've got our own government helping to make that a possibility. We've got the Biden regime. Janet Yellen continuously makes a fool of herself. Jared Bernstein doesn't understand how our monetary policy works. And the meat puppet in chief is out there making globalist deals and laughing maniacally about relationships like with BlackRock and the CEO of Microsoft. While they're out there in Italy at the G7, trying to figure out how to spend money we still don't have on things that we don't need on countries other than our own, they let the Petrodollar agreement with Saudi Arabia expire. Can't make this up. Saudi Arabia for 50 years was under an agreement that they would trade their oil, their energy, but their oil in US dollars. Hence the Petrodollar agreement. And this administration, the wonderful children in adult bodies running our country into the ground with zero fiscal sense or responsibility, allowed an agreement that has stood for over 5 decades to expire, leaving Saudi Arabia to now trade in energy in whatever currency they want, including in Chinese currency, in Indian currency, or any other currency along the BRICS nations. Look, I get there are people out there who don't like Donald Trump's choice of words, and they think that somehow the Alvin Bragg case is legitimate, and now he's a convicted felon, even though he hasn't been sentenced yet, which means he's technically not yet convicted because there hasn't been a judgment handed down. You at least had someone who understood economics. You had somebody who understood that there are enemies out there trying to hurt this country, and it doesn't matter what your political affiliation or leaning, they want to hurt all Americans.
Shout out to Alan Sanders. I really enjoyed his breakdown of this thing. Follow him on X. Follow me on X, by the way. I like to share a lot of the things that I am looking at, that I am reviewing, that possibly could be in my next video. Now, Biden administration, they've been talking about contrast. And we see the contrast now. Look at this. Don't you see this, how it threatens Americans, all of us? Because we can actually be dealing with hyperinflation. We already feel like we're in a recession. If you ask me, we are in a recession. But they're trying to, mainstream media, they're trying to control a narrative. They're trying to perpetuate a narrative where we're not in a recession. We have strong economic numbers. When you just had the Federal Reserve Chairman, Jerome Powell, just admit that maybe they overstated the job numbers. They found the corrections. And I believe that they've been exaggerating the numbers by 100,000 more jobs than they actually have in this economy. Make it make sense. This is the contrast that the Democrats want to make. Don't vote. Don't argue on the issues. You got some leftists, and this is me. If you watch my live stream on Friday, I ask you to watch it, please. Especially my Pac-Man segment. David Pac-Man, prominent progressive commentator. I went through his comment section, and a lot of people said that Donald Trump, Joe Biden is stronger on the issues than Donald Trump. And I laughed. I was like, oh, hey, look, I told my viewers, hey, look, this is what Pac-Man's viewers believe, right? You have to understand that some people actually think Joe Biden has the right of the policies. I don't care how you feel. I don't care what you think necessarily about Joe Biden's policies. Let's look at the results. The results are in, okay? Everything, look, you have a guy in Donald Trump that was able to see all these problems coming. We didn't elect him. We elected the other guy because mean tweets on Twitter at the time. Now, fast forward 5 years after mean tweets on Twitter, we lost our agreement that we've been holding on for 50 years. At no attempt to renew it. Maybe this is all by design. I mean, Joe Biden thinks green energy will be able to sustain us when it can't. We'll have rolling blackouts if we had to put the energy burden that we're currently used to, the energy lifestyle that we're currently used to, solar and wind cannot maintain for the entire country. So that means that we have to go and make our own oil or go and find a way to replace the oil from Saudi Arabia. Now, we can still buy oil from Saudi Arabia. It's just Saudi Arabia is now aligned with the BRICS movement. And now we got to trade in their currency, giving their currency more legitimacy, especially that they're going to try to enforce all their currency that's associated with the BRICS movement with the gold standard. It's becoming a gold rush. Gold's going to explode again, I think, anyway. Not financial advice, by the way. And you know the funny part about all this idiocy from the Biden administration, because I want to focus on this point about the policies, because Joe Biden's policies literally put us in this weakened position. Remember in his first 100 days in office, what did Joe Biden do? He reversed every single executive order that Donald Trump has passed. The Remain in Mexico order, the Keystone Pipeline, which I think will help us a lot right now, because I think Canada and Mexico are oil producers, are becoming oil producers now. And look, we were right there. And you don't think it was strategic to have a pipeline associated with these two countries so that way we can have oil more cheaply compared to trying to get it imported by Saudi Arabia and other countries? No. That's too common sense. That's too smart. See what happens when you elect, this is my argument. See what happens when you elect a politician that thinks party first over country? Party over country. That is the name of the Democratic Party. Because we want to make Donald Trump look incompetent. We want to remove every single policy in the first 100 days to prove that, look, the adults are back in the room. No, more like the chumps are back in the room. More like the globalists are back in the room. More like incompetence is back in the room. Hey, look, this is just how I'm seeing. Like, I mean, you want contrast? You want contrast? Let's take a quick look at how Donald Trump looked during G7, because G7, hey, look, during the world stage, Biden's doing it again. Let's take a look. Can we pretend this man, like, can we stop pretending that this man's like all the way there? To me, Biden looks mentally unfit to me. I don't know how they're going to get around that. Like, I show you the polls before. Independents will rather vote for an egotistical Donald Trump than a mentally unfit Biden. At this point, it's becoming a substantive debate. Like, do you want 4 more years of this? And the mainstream media will tell you, oh no, like mainstream media, Democrat media, journalists that overwhelmingly donate to the Democratic Party. You don't think they're going to try to spin this in a positive light? Oh, he was looking at some squirrel. He was just admiring nature. They'll find some excuse to excuse this. But look at all the world leaders. They're like, hey, someone get Grandpa. Hey, oh, look, Grandpa's about to wander off. Everyone looks to the side. They glanced over and they say, hey, somebody go get this guy. Hey, someone get him. Hurry up and get him. We're about to take the picture. Come on, bro. Some people say this is someone it look like someone going through Alzheimer's. Sorry, I can't speak today. And what we decided to do, Biden just signed a security agreement with President Zelensky committing the U.S. to financially supporting Ukraine for 10 more years. I guess it's their attempt to try to combat de-dollarization, but I mean, how much money do we have to keep sending overseas? Our position is weakening in the world stage, right? Breaking, America's in panic as the BRICS has initiated de-dollarization. The new composition of BRICS will now control 80% of the world's oil producers. India, Russia, now Saudi Arabia that just joined them recently. Iran is apparently part of it too. With the addition of Saudi Arabia and the United States, the United Arab and the Iran to the BRICS, the union will be able to control the lion's share of the world's oil production. Green energy, some liberals are going to say, oh, Kenny, all we have to do is just we can rely on renewable energy. Well, Germany tried to do this. And when they were about to get cut off by Russia, they realized, hey, during those cold years, a lot of people are going to be freezing to death. And they had to still buy oil. Solar and wind are inefficient as an energy source. They're too high cost. There's so much cost compared to the amount of energy they actually output. It cannot sustain our energy use currently. So now the sanctions that we place on Russia is a big backfire. And here's the funny part about Russia. And this is why I'm saying, like, we don't put the smartest people in our office. Russia literally finished, I think, removing the US dollar out of their economy. The US dollar and the euro out of their economy. Russia now considers America as an enemy because they found American weaponry used during Ukraine's assault on Russia. And guess who became the largest currency in the Moscow Stock Exchange? China. And I think I made a comment on it. I was like, yo, at this point, I'm going to assume that China and Russia are already in alliance. It's just is probably not publicly known. Let me see if I can find the tweet. I can find you the tweet, which is my post here. I said, if they try to warn us, at this point, I'm going to assume that they're already in an alliance and China is just waiting for the right time to make a play in Taiwan. I honestly believe this, especially after a Russian sub was found near Florida. Just in, Chinese yuan becomes the most traded foreign currency on Russia's Moscow Stock Exchange after halting all the US and US dollars and euro transactions. How that sanctions working out for you? I warned how, hey, this is economically dangerous move for the spending happy Democrats, because the only reason you're able to spend without having hyperinflation was because of the reserve status of the US dollar. But if this starts to trend, we'll be in trouble. And they're trying to make this. And the funny part is BRICS is not going to put no strings attached with their foreign aid. They ain't gonna be like, hey, you gotta have trans affirming day, or we're not going to give you $1 million. They're going to be like, nah, we're just going to do business. These people are out for the kill, but we have no serious people in Congress. I expose the hypocrisy. You know, the left like to say, oh, look, Kenny, we still can't elect a convicted felon. Well, Congress is apparently doing that. Congress has $17 million of sexual misconduct hush money fund campaign finance violations. And I put this tweet. You can follow me on X if you want to see some of my initial reactions to some news. Rules for Trump, but not for me, other politicians. Essentially, that's the rule. That's the establishment. But let me know what you think. Are you concerned about the U.S. losing its petrodollar status? Are you aware that we lost our petrodollar status? And how you feel about the fact that mainstream media, who is supposed to be informing Americans, are not talking about the fact that we lost the petrodollar status? You think they're trying to protect Biden? I want to hear your answers in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I really do appreciate you guys watching to the end of the video. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.